everyone, this is Ben. We love looking at Ben, but I might share my screen straight away and just show that very unspecific image that we have as far as we're calling it agents of change, which is that image.
Pat, I've lost your sound.
Oh, you're kidding me. Okay, let's come back. Stay there. Sorry.
But I can't hear you.
Are we back? Can you hear me again?
You're very, very faint. I don't know why. Your sound was fine, and then you went really, really low.
I don't know. Well, then maybe we won't. Can you hear me now?
Barely. Your computer's gone into low power mode. It might have turned something down. Yeah, if we can plug it in. I certainly can't hear anything now.
Okay. Jump onto Desi's. Ben, we can hear you. So while we're doing,
I can when you lean in. Actually, I can almost hear it pretty well.
Okay. What I was going to ask you was that Agents of Change diagram has about 9 tall towers on it. Some of them are in some, let's call them a grouping of 3 or 4 up near the dive site, and others are much more singular. We're not being architects, we're just looking at the public realm in between. Does it make sense for that group of 3 or 4 to think of putting a public plaza? We've got the 24 students.
How about I share? I've got a base file here, and we can talk about a couple of things, and we can run through them directly on screen. Okay. Now, do you want to turn your laptop around and show me the class, and I'll give them a wave? I can only see you at the moment. I can't see anyone else.
Oh, no.
Something like that. Awesome.
Hey, can everyone wave to Ben? Ben, a wave, so he feels loved.
Very good. Very good. Now, so what I think is critical to begin with, and what we don't have from Council's diagram, is a very clear public domain structure. Now, understanding there is a small slither along the rail land for the current sort of cycleway or shared way, what you'd want to do is to give it a dedicated public domain widening within the development lot. I think something like 9 meters is probably good. So you've got a space of say 12 meters where you could play with levels. You can actually get some meaningful landscape, a bit of generosity in there to stop it feeling unsafe and furtive. And then you're going to need a set of laneways to break up these blocks. Now, what I was just working with in here was a set of laneways. What we can also do is you guys can start to decide how you might break up new open space. So we might call this new park. My first thing that jumps out to me is you'd absolutely try and keep a meaningful recreation space and as many big trees as you can within that north-facing open armature of the bowling green. You may well absolutely be able to redevelop the other half. It may be that, in fact, this lane needs to come across, and that is the amount of park that you'll get, because there's probably not enough remnant development, but we are talking very tall buildings. And yeah, sorry, Pat, go in.
We agree with you because it's a natural link, because your studio recognised it last year.
Totally. And there's an existing lane with a stub north and south. You'd absolutely just continue that in, and then you can integrate those to arrive at the park. So you, from every laneway, you see park at the end. So you know exactly where your destination is. The bit in the south with the Landcom site is unusual. they've left, as engineers do, this horrible boundary. So what you'd want to do is strike a really direct line to make, again, a really direct line of sight to give you the opportunity to make a meaningful landscape and linkage. They've gone all over the place like dog's breakfast, but that's what they do. It would have been good to make a meaningful space, but you guys can do that. You get two developable blocks, each just under a hectare. They sort of fall into that highly walkable category. And then what I'll do then is I'll just have the development blocks in blue here. I think you probably want to look for a secondary space, or think about actually turning the street with its tree plantings in the street into a new open space as well. So there's a few different options within there. And you were suggesting at the top, I think there's absolutely room in here. You'd want a north-facing space. So you may decide, in fact, that the redevelopment wants to make either a linear park through, and you do a bit of a land swap with the end of the laneway, or that you make this northern lobe. It seems to be in 3 different ownerships. If it was in one ownership, it would be a bit easier. For this exercise, I think we could certainly suggest. It's not going to let me draw it while I'm talking to you. No, that's fine. I'll fix that when I'm off the thing. But I think for this exercise, you could say that there's a north-facing park there and another lane link down the eastern edge, and then that starts to build this permeability and secondary movement through. Sounds like you need to plug in the power. Now, this file has an aerial, the boundaries, public domain structure, and the 3D is in here, but it's a very old model. It seems to be outdated, and it's not quite aligning with the structure of what we'd like to align to the boundaries, the cadastre, but I think you could use it as a reference. So I can export that. This is in Vectorworks. I can save it in Vectorworks, but I could also export it into a DWG or another format if you need. I can't hear anything, Pat.
That's okay. We weren't talking.
Ah, good. Okay. Yep. So there's a high-res aerial. The cadastre and boundaries are in there, as is the structure to work with. So I think, if students suggested that maybe 9 meters wasn't enough, you could go to 12 or 15. But what you're going to get then, of course, is more pressure on the development sites, likely to go taller. When we get something from Will, I mean, we need a plan or something. Otherwise, I can just do tower forms that I think would be appropriate based on this structure. So I can add those in if you like.
That would be great.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get anything from Will by the sound of it.
No.
So, okay. Well, let's go with that. Has anybody got any questions in regard to the base file being able to import?
Got questions. Something that came up last year with David, but also Will, was the idea of the Rose Memorial Garden being a podium park on top of a potential bus interchange. So we're looking at sort of everyone having to deal with podium possibilities of meeting these tall towers at level 3 or level 4. What does that sound?
It's very difficult. If you look at Bondi Junction and other things, you can see exactly what happens when we build up these podiums and evacuate the ground level. If it's important to have the ground level have primacy, and then if you have something joining at a higher level, think of it as 2 ground planes. We don't want that high level to subserve or to subvert the ground plane.
Okay,
What is under the rose garden at the moment?
that is a really good question.
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
it's a bit of a strange one, and it's whether it's appropriate and we should extend it or perpetuate it, or whether it could be something that should be brought down as part of the ground plane. I'm just not familiar enough with it.
Yeah, I'll ask David about that. He may know more. We've tried to look. It looks to me like there's car parks and things underneath, but
Yeah.
it's got little shallow-rooted roses on it. There's no big trees. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
It's whether it was a bit of garnish to a car park, and then that's something we want to actually fix and actually bring back as a great urban space on the ground plane.
Yep.
So these podiums should all be active at the ground floor, especially if you're creating an extended public link along the rail. That's actually a meaningful space. But that said, you could actually bring that whole space up to the level of the rail. The problem you get then, of course, is how you bring the level of the streets which come east-west that meet that at the moment. If this comes up, how do you transition up? And it could be done very elegantly, but it would have to be done very carefully.
Ben, do you know any good precedents where they have a two-tier, let's call it pedestrian bike, sort of fast and slow situation? California's San Francisco Bay Bridge comes to mind. But, that's...
Yeah, the two-level one. Oh, look, the Opera House is the best of the lot, of course. You've got the through space at the higher level where Opera Bar is, and the lower space where you occupy by the water. So it's removed the through movements from the occupying movements. It's very skillfully done, but that's a very, very specific case. There's lots of examples in Sydney of dual levels where Forbes Street changes from its high level south of William Street to come down and meet William Street. There's, of course, those beautiful pair of sandstone stairs that come down. So it needs to be done in a really meaningful way where you allow people to generously come down from one level to the other. Similarly, at Pyramid Park.
Lovely.
It'd be nice if people weren't on their phones and biting their nails.
I hear you. Is everyone following this?
I think not. I think the four on camera are off on another planet.
There is that potential. I think people are translating as they go, I like to think.
I don't think so. I think it's better to have phones down and listen in. But anyway.
Phones down. What the other thing I wanted to ask is about that dual level stuff. Oh, the underpass is very narrow. Maybe it's 4 meters. If you've got any precedents you can talk to about examples where they're expanded or they're just kept. I think that's.
Yep, they need to be really well lit.
Yeah.
There's a couple of fantastic ones. I'll share the screen again. The underpass under the central station in Amsterdam has been upgraded. And it has, let me see if I can find a better quality than that. It's very beautifully tiled. It's very beautifully lit. It has a very clear pedestrian side and a very clear bikeway back and forth. And it's really the lighting that does it. The other one is the Lennox Bridge portals that we cut through the historic Lennox Bridge at Parramatta. So my colleague Laura did these, where these are actually cut through not only for pedestrian and cycle, but also for flood relief. They have a range of things inside, including the old historic remnants of the timber bridge that was still embodied and hidden within, and it reveals the layers, as well as a number of other things going on. So you can even cut into older structures as well. It's incredibly expensive, but the biggest thing is lighting. If it's lovely, light and bright at night,
So
and in the day.
are you still there?
I'm just on
Yes.
Jesse's. Can you hear me here, Benjamin?
Yep, I can.
Benjamin, can you hear me here?
Yes. Can you
Yep.
hear me?
Yeah.
Great.
On that note, can you record this?
I think it's actually
It's still recording? Brilliant. Hopefully it's still recording.
Seems to be.
Good. Very good. Very good. Oh, on that note, because you mentioned it's expensive, you'll have a better idea than I. If one was giving a budget for the public realm where there's 9 200-metre residential towers going up, let's say in the next 10 years, what figure might one consider? What does it cost to build 9 towers at 200 metres high?
Oh, they're $100 million each plus.
So a billion?
Yes.
I think I said a
Easily.
billion. Yeah, I wasn't.
Easily.
I wasn't so. Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit. I'm just trying to make sure everyone sits in that sort of brave space of, this is a major urban thing. We do have a question. Good. So you're not disagreeing.
A major park and laneways of this sense in a city centre, I think you'd be looking at $30 million worth of public domain.
Okay.
At
30
least.
million, we can deal with that.
Yep.
We have a question from Georgina.
Hi. Sorry, I just had a bit of a question about the dive site. It's kind of a bit of a random one. I've sort of done a tiny bit of research about it, but as to what we can do around it, because it's sort of like an ugly kind of thing in the sort of realm.
Yep.
What really is it, and is there any sort of rules around and regulations around, what we could potentially plant or build around it to almost kind of block it off? I don't know.
Yeah, look, it's a horrible thing, and it would be good if they had considered it as a potential construction site. It doesn't look to be. So when we get these towers over metro stations, the station is inbuilt, obviously, with the structure to take a tower after. It doesn't look to me like it has been, and it's got access.
Yeah.
You can see this is actually to drive a truck through that gate and
Yeah.
around and down underneath, and you can see where the 2 pieces of rail actually are transitioning down.
Right.
So I would give yourselves a meaningful setback by which I would get rid of this curly path. I would make a really great edge and generous path to the western boundary of the new sites in blue. And then I think you've got much more scope then to have much more bigger, meaningful landscape. It's going to be pretty ugly. So think about what it is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see an issue with, in fact, I mean, if we go back,
Can you
I
hear
would
me,
see an
Benjamin?
issue. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Benjamin, can you hear me? Can I say one
can.
thing? Because certainly David's spoken about the strong possibility of bike paths linking down to Artarm and North Sydney. So the idea that we just throw a big old bike bridge or something over Mowbray Road, but so we're potentially crossing Mowbray Road, one level up, or or something.
I would always not want to bridge, not want to go over. I would always keep everything on grade. As soon as you bridge over, you make pedestrians and cyclists do all the effort. You got to get up, you got to get across, you got to get down, and you let the cars think they can go fast without any need to negotiate or be careful. So I would say pedestrians and cyclists own the ground plane, make the cars slow down, make the cars give way. You've got lights there. I would absolutely keep everything on the ground plane. I wouldn't go up unless it's necessary. Otherwise, we're allowing cars to think that they rule and they can go as fast as they like without having to be careful of any other users in the public domain.
Okay. I like that. And so, I've been showing students images of Hong Kong escalators this morning just for the fun of it, because it feels there's potential for a 2-tiered stacked system running along along Frank Shannon.
I mean, it's a bit like Las Vegas in that sense. Hong Kong's the only one that'd get away with it. They've got incredibly steep terrain, but also they're bloody ugly. They're really horribly ugly.
I know.
And out in the weather, they break all the time.
A la UTS.
Things like that. Yep. You don't want any, and they use huge amounts of power. They use huge amounts of steel. all these concrete structures. So in terms of embodied energy and everything, we want to eliminate any of the need for heavy infrastructure. We want to come back to being as gentle and soft as we can.
Okay.
So yeah, I would avoid any of that. You actually don't have huge changes in ground plane level here. It's the infrastructure that's the problem. So I would look to nip back a beautiful ground plane.
Okay.
But I think,
we
look,
can
I'll
take that
highlight
on.
this. I think you can get another development block in here. And so actually you could have a building and activation that if that was say 12 meters off, you could actually build into here. That's another possibility as well. And then you have this as a major space, but the link across is difficult. So I think if you were thinking of that as a more major space with activation on the western edge, I think you could make a proper landscape space out of all of that. Add it together, rethink it completely, and link down, as you say, across Mowbray Road down to the south.
Okay.
You've got a nice quiet street here that you could, there seems to be something already, in fact, this bike link already goes under Mowbray Road by the look of it and goes down along the rail. So there's actually already a separation, the bike's going underneath by the look of it.
You down there on, sorry, I just jumped to the big screen. I'm trying to put it on the big screen. Where are you exactly, Ben? Are you on Albert Ave? Where are you? Sorry.
So if you come down the edge of the rail.
Yep.
And you get to Mowbray Road, it actually looks like there's room, what's this on the edge? Is that access within or it's whether that is a cycleway?
Yeah, it may be the start of a cycleway.
Otherwise, I would have thought you could come across the crossing here and there's a lovely local quiet street here you could embed a cycleway into, and it's off the highway. It's parallel. It's parallel to the railway, and it looks like you could continue to go all the way down.
And we could connect down there.
Totally, and you're one block back from the highway, so you're not missing with the messy traffic. There is a connection the whole way down to Artarmon, actually, one street. Yeah. Right into St Leonard's. Yep. Past the hospital. So I reckon that's it's a free go.
Okay.
Yep, straight up past the station.
Okay, that's good. We've got one more question. Do you want to now we're chatting? Gasson, come on up. Benjamin Gasson.
Hi, Benjamin. It's
Howdy.
Son.
Yeah, good, thanks. Question on the eastern side, the eastern side of the underpath. If you go up a little bit north of that, there is a footpath that runs under one of the pavilions, which is very narrow and
next to the cricket oval.
Yeah, next to the cricket oval. Yeah.
Is it coming under here?
It's
south of the oval or north?
Next to it. It's
next to it.
Just on the western side of the oval, there's two pavilions.
Yeah.
And it's tiny. It's like about 2 meters wide, and it's probably only about 1.8 high. Yeah. I feel like
this one.
Yes.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah, look, you could widen things.
Yeah.
It's just a structural issue. They just have to, anything like that, they have to shut down the rail overnight.
I thought the rail.
But do they steal a little bit from the cricket oval? Do cricket ovals all have to be the same dimension, or are they like AFL ovals? They differ.
So you're talking about the pathway past or the underpass?
The pathway.
Pathway, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, it's interesting. This it gets very narrow here. No, it looks like that's an unusual. I think you could chamfer that curve and round that curve off and absolutely gain some space.
And
that's a double football field,
oval.
but cricket ovals tend to be rounder, so it's almost like it is an unusual shape. I think you could shave. I'd take a curve from where this beautiful tree is between the split path and I'd form a gentle curve that wants to integrate with the curve up here at the pavilion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you give yourself another 2 or 3 meters,
Yeah,
that's a huge gain for a path like that.
Yeah, yeah, because it gets shared by cyclists and all sorts, runners and children.
You'd
Yeah.
want to, so let's have a look just at the moment. Yeah, 98 diameter, it's on the smaller side, but if you did that, it's a 49-meter radius, but if you were to shift that as far east as you could go, I think the full competition field is 65. It's not able to hit a competition size. So it's already compromised. I don't think that's a problem. I think if you were to realign the oval to the east and shift the cricket pitches further off centre to the east and shave a bit of that side, there's a couple of interesting fields. We can go and have a look at another couple, because this is a beautiful field just further north.
Yeah.
And it's a competition size. See that? It's above 60-meter radius. So there's a
Yeah.
nearby field that you would utilize if you needed that. The best ones, in fact, there's a couple in Alexandria. There's a really good one, North Sydney. There's a couple in Alexandria, and they have trees in the middle of them.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
So you can see this one.
Yeah.
This has got a tree in the middle of the pitch.
Nice. Ours is a flood detention, so we can put some melaleucas in it.
Totally. Well, look, this is really funny because they play cricket around the tree.
That is beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Go,
It's
Alexandria.
amazing.
What-
It's amazing. And sometimes the ball hits the tree.
Like
So,
in a
look,
golf course. What
That's
field
right.
is
That's
it?
right. Is it Alexandria Park? And I think it's probably smaller than the one you've got. No, it's pretty good. Okay, it's bigger than the one you've got. Not far off though. And if you count the tree, then you've lost some. But what you can see is none of them are perfect ovals. They are all strange shapes.
Yeah, great.
Hmm.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
No, cool. Yeah, no, that's good. I think you can play around with that. If like a 4.5 meter shared path is so much better than a 2 meter shared path. So if you're able to very gently make an elegant geometry with the edge and give you a really clear enhanced edge, that'll make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
That's great. I'm taking you back to the Rose Garden, how it meets the existing playground. And there was some talk of,
Let's have a
I don't
look.
know, lowering Albert Ave or going over the top of it a little bit.
Let's have a look. I'll share again. So just remind me, this is the Rose Garden here.
Yeah, that correct. Yes, correct.
Does it come, is it on level from the south and you walk in on level and then it drops?
No, it's a ramp. It ramps up to the train station. And then so where it meets the road, it's on level, but it's actually a ramp, quite a oddly steep ramp.
The whole thing is a ramp.
Yeah. And then so the north side of it, the north end
Yep.
of that red brick path, has a series of very uncomfortable steps that then go down into a loading zone kind of car area, which you then cross over into as a pedestrian into the Chatswood. The whole thing's really messy. The whole thing feels like it should be.
Gosh, so actually there's quite a few things already going over the top.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
So look, what you could do here is you could create one cohesive ground plane with a proper generous way down. I think you'd want to smash up and remake that whole top end.
Yeah,
You'd want to get rid of these horrible stairs. You want it to be one really beautiful, sinuous space. It's very strange. I mean, this is where it does become a little. This is the closest we get to Hong Kong, I suppose. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely there.
Yeah. So look, you just want to get the levels beautiful. You can have beautiful seating walls at sort of 600 mils. If anyone's going to work with this, work in increments of 150 mils. 150 mils is a nice step in the public domain. 450 for a bleacher, 600 for a seating wall, 900 level change before you have to have a balustrade. Work with 150 mil increments and use it as a system, and you'll have a beautiful sort of harmonious movement.
Beautiful. I like that. Now, the other site is a odd one. It's on the west side of, right where you are there, on the west side of the train line. And it's still called Frank Shannon Walk, and it very uncomfortably hits the station with a very ugly, dark bike locker storage
It's
thing.
horrible.
And a similar
So-
thing where it feels like the path needs to go over the road.
Okay, so what we do, okay, so what you would do here, well, it's all down, and then you come across, and then you continue past the rail. So that's which bit do you think wants to go over?
Well, where Frank Shannon crosses over, I think Frank Shannon should bridge over Albert. Albert Ave drops down. It goes underneath the train line, so that it already has a bit of a hollow as a road driving experience. So it feels like that could be,
You've got a
augmented a
building-
little bit.
You've got a building to deal with here, which I think is a fairly new building. Oh, it is. It's one of these igloos. It's the only one. I wish that they'd give us a better panorama than that. Oh, God, that angle's horrendous. There you go. So, yeah, it peels down. This is an older building. This building will go in time very soon. This is a new building, and it actually has shops down here.
Yeah.
What you could do is you could split and pin something like a beautiful structure. And especially if you're redeveloping and adding a bigger setback, you could have an at-ground ground plane, and then you could pin a structure to the edge of the railway. That could be like the new Harbour Bridge extension has been on the northern side for the cycle.
Yeah, we have looked at that as a precedent. We're on board with that.
So what I think you're not gonna turn that building over. We'll go back to north. You're not going to turn that building over because it's very new, but you could pin a 3-meter cycle structure, which does it split back here. And so you want to come up soon. And I think if this building's going to turn over, what we can show in here is you've only got an existing space there, which is a bit of a bugger. But from here, I reckon you'd want to, let's have the right class on. I reckon from here, you'd want to broaden that space. Beautiful. And get that dedicated, just to broaden it right out, so that you can have something coming up. You can have an arrival position. You could even wedge it a little bit more than that.
Yep, potentially bridge over Albert, pedestrian bridge over Albert.
I would come up from here. So if I show, I will just show here. If you came up and pinned onto the edge, and if you've got to look where the edge is, and the edge is there. Yeah. And if you brought a 3-meter pin up, this is where you could have your high edge. You're going to have to deal with trees and stuff down here, but I don't think there's much quality landscape down there. I think it's a lot of garnish.
Correct.
But you could have your higher edge as an appendage pinned to the bridge and the edge of the rail. But then with this widening, you can actually have lovely transitions, terracing, proper stepping, and a proper active edge at the lower level. So, I mean, yeah, let's make that a different color. You could easily have a high, I mean, it's like the slow space versus the through or fast space. You could have like a commuter route pinned to the edge of the rail, and then you've got a much mixed use slower zone at the ground plane.
Yeah, I like it.
So, yep, no, I think you could absolutely do that. What you would do, though, is if I turn off the boundaries don't always align. I would align it and pin it onto the structure. You'll want to rely on it hanging off that structure.
That's the datum, really, that structure.
That's right. So it would fold up from 0 here. And here, if you combine that with the street, you actually really what you're getting is that's a whole space in itself.
Yep, I agree.
Much larger space. So that's the new, but I would pull this turnaround and stuff right back so that you actually have a much larger, beautiful sort of little square and plaza space.
Plaza.
Yeah, holding that whole corner. You could get some proper deep silent stuff in there too.
That's exciting.
Hmm. I think you've got a few. You've got lots of different ones.
Yep.
I'll have a go at the buildings.
Okay.
Why don't I send this over to you now with the I'll just take that one off because that's just us testing. But why don't I send this over to you now with the public domain structure and the development sites, but I'll have to have a go at the built form over the weekend for you.
Okay, we can
And
handle that.
I can update you with a new file again.
That would be amazing.
So at least you've got a file to go with today and you can muck around with it.
Okay.
Cool.
Sprint
Give me
and mucking
15
around.
minutes. I'll finish off this layer of public domain and development blocks.
Okay, done.
Cool.
Ben, thank you. We'll let you go.
Cool. No worries. I can't see you. You're all black on my screen, but otherwise, have a lovely day.
Okay,
yourselves
we'll
into it.
do. We can see you. I don't know. Brilliant. Thank you.
Cool.
I'll look out on email land.
Yeah,
Thanks
great.
a lot. We're
Okay, I'll send
waving.
it
We're all
shortly.
waving.
Awesome. I'll send it shortly.
Okay. Hey, thanks so much. Bye.
Okay.